On April 12, 2008, Robert Zoellick, president of World Bank, asked the United States and Europe to provide the United Nations World Food Program with $500 million in emergency aid to combat the growing global food crisis. He urged the international community to put our money where our mouth is. Sorry, guys. In response to Zoellick's request, President Bush ordered $200 million in emergency food assistance. This assistance, while helpful, is not enough.
The United States is the leader in food aid as well as exporting major staples for diets across the world. In her book, Stolen Harvest, global feminist Vandana Shiva states, the monopolistic control over agricultural production, along with structural adjustment policies that brutally favor exports, results in floods of exports of foods from the U.S. to the Third World. While the practice of exports and imports are important in terms of economics, there is a difference between free trade and forced trade. Encouraging countries to import the majority of their food has left millions of small farmers in developing countries without jobs and millions without affordable food.
In the last 3 years, the price of corn and rice has increased by 180%. For many countries, these are basic staples. In Haiti, food prices have risen by 50% in the last year, where 3/4 of the population live on less than $2 a day. In America, the price of groceries has risen by 4%, and this year's increase is projected to be even higher. In Mexico, the price of the tortilla has risen by 500% since NAFTA was signed in 1993. The food crisis is not just in one nation, it is a global food crisis. Most critics agree that the global food crisis stems from several developments occurring simultaneously. A changing climate is to blame for droughts, and the biofuel boom is to blame for a shortage of corn. The rising energy costs are to blame for the high price of transporting food, as well as the cost of producing food. Since this summer, global food and fuel prices have risen by 55%.
John McCain blames the rise of food prices in America on the countless farm subsidies given to large farming corporations, such as Cargill. He points out that continuing these farm subsidies not only distorts prices in the global market, but also hurts our small farmers. He wants to veto farming subsidies not based on need, in an effort to help the U.S. continue competing in foreign markets. However, when the issue of NAFTA comes into play, John McCain calls for stronger NAFTA ties. He states, "This country will honor its international agreements, including NAFTA, and we will expect the same of others." By honoring this trade agreement, John McCain is honoring the once cheap imports that most Mexicans cannot afford. Mexico can produce its own corn cheaper. They should not be forced to forego this possible solution to their own food crisis to honor an agreement that is more detrimental than good.
Barack Obama is the opposite. He sees the need for a renegotiation of NAFTA. He understands that NAFTA has not only hurt Mexico, but also the United States. He realizes that revisions need to be made in an effort to ensure environmental protections and labor protections. 1/5 of the nation's corn crop has been used for ethanol. This not only increases food prices for us, but for countries that depend on us. Restructuring NAFTA could be a step towards decreasing the effect of biofuel advancements in the stomachs of Mexicans. Obama understands the difference between forced trade and free trade.
In her book, All Our Relations, Native Struggles for Land and Life, Winona LaDuke states, "Use less, produce what you can on your own, and be cognizant of the implications of each decision on others." This quote not only applies to us individually in this nation, but to our nation as a whole. The decisions we make as a country not only affect the United States, but have effects globally. Addressing the global food crisis is not just about farm subsidies in our own country. It's about allowing other countries to produce their own food instead of having to rely on the U.S. It's about realizing that developing countries cannot afford our ways of farming that involve corporate patents on seeds and expensive fertilizer. Conquering the food crisis requires the realization that trade agreements such as NAFTA need renegotiation. Conquering the food crisis requires that our country realizes that we are all interconnected.